Just because you've done work doesn't mean you should expect to get paid. Well, that's what some customers seem to think. There are a lot of challenges working as a small business, especially if you're working for larger companies. There are purchasing departments, buyers, different kinds of structures that people have set up. There's a lot of red tape to go from doing work to actually getting paid for it. There are statements of work, there are purchase orders, there are many different kinds of systems that people use, and each company has its own kind of red tape system that you need to be able to navigate through. One of the things that's fairly universal, though, is the expectation that you are going to give them 30-day terms. That's just sort of an industry expectation, at least in the industry that I'm in servicing technical companies and aerospace companies, medical companies, those sort of clients that we have. Business to business billing is generally accepted as 30-day terms. It's not a very good arrangement for us as small businesses, but it's the way a lot of large companies do it. And you have to deal with their terms as they deal with them. When you're the small fish in their big pond, they really get to dictate a lot of terms. You can hold to your terms if you want to, demand prepayment, those kinds of things, but mostly what that will do is it will create a lot of back and forth that often leads to nothing, and you end up just complying with their terms just in order to get something done. It's difficult because you're dealing with larger companies, much larger companies with legal teams and agreements that they don't want to make special agreements with individual companies. They want to have blanket agreements that apply to all of their vendors. When you're working with larger companies, the larger the company is, the more they tend to push those terms. It's kind of ironic, but it seems like the more money that a company has, the more they're not wanting to part with it. I've had large companies that I've done work for that have had 30-day terms that took, in one case, almost 6 months to pay for a bill, where I had bought hardware that I was making modifications to and then selling to them. So I had to carry that cost of that hardware for over 6 months for a very large company in order to make that project complete. It's not fair, but it is reality. On your payment side, if you've got employees, you're going to have to be paying them probably every 2 weeks or twice a month, whatever your arrangement is. So you're going to have to carry those differences. An important consideration in that is it's not just one particular chunk of money that moves around. You could say, keep a buffer to deal with that difference of the 30-day terms versus the 2-week terms or whatever that you're paying for your employees. But the problem is that as you grow, as you have more projects, more irons in the fire, that gap gets bigger and bigger. And the amount of money that you have to carry gets larger in proportion to how much work you're doing and how many employees that you have working on those projects. One of the strategies that a lot of companies use is to use a line of credit from the bank. So they actually pay payroll out of the line of credit, so it's not coming off the cash balance in the account, and they just take care of the cash flow that way. I'm personally not a fan of that because I don't like credit in general, so I just keep a large buffer of cash in our bank account to be able to cover those swing times. But also, I have to keep a close eye on the cash, especially if we're doing a large project that is going to require a lot of purchase of equipment that's part of the project, but also just the cycle time. If I've got a lot of people working on one project, all of the carrying cost of those employees has to fit inside whatever budget that I've got in my bank account to be able to cover that cost of their labor until the customer comes through with the payment. Which, even in the best case with 30-day terms, if we're working on a time and materials project, we work on the project for, say, 2 weeks. I bill every 2 weeks for all of my customers, with rare exception, because I like to keep a short account. Many customers, however, like to have monthly billing. So some customers won't even accept bills until, say, the 22nd of the month or some whatever rule that they have. So even if I have set out bills for a 2 week period and then another 2 week period, they're going to take whatever they had at the time on the 22nd or whatever their date is. They're going to take those bills, then they're going to process them and put them in the queue to be paid at 30 days. Well, that for me could quite easily be they don't even look at the bill until it's 30 days from when we actually did some of that work. And then they're going to sit on it for 30 days and let it season before they pay. And it's very common. You would think that the terms are to pay within 30 days. It's very common, especially with larger companies, that they will pay on 30 days. And sometimes, like I said, it's on a specific date, if like the 22nd or whatever it is, they're going to pay 30 days after that. They're going to look at that date as the received date, and then they're going to schedule a payment for exactly 30 days later. It's a horrible way to do business for us, for our cash flow purposes, but it is just the nature of what you have to live with a lot of these companies. So the easiest way to deal with these kinds of things that I have found is to just keep a big float of cash that you can use to help get through those bumps. Something that you need to be aware of as you're starting a company, to make sure that you keep that buffer available to you so that your availability of cash does not prevent you from growing and doing more and more projects.